I am actively playing in a Wrath and Glory campaign. Wrath and Glory is the official or one of the official rule sets for playing a Warhammer 40k game. But instead of playing in the Warhammer 40k universe, we're playing an alternate history World War II campaign, which means that we're just a bunch of guys who go to Normandy 2 weeks before D-Day and try to completely destroy a bunch of communication towers, but we're also unraveling a bunch of weird stuff that the Germans are doing, and it's kind of like Rattler 2 meets Wolfenstein meets Quentin Tarantino and Guy Ritchie kind of shenanigans. Now, outside of changing the setting and universe that we're playing in, we're actually using 99% of the rules of Wrath and Glory. So here's my 5 reasons to play Wrath and Glory. Hi there fellow roleplayers and game masters, my name is Mr. Tarask, and today I want to do another video about Wrath and Glory, which is an official rule set for playing in the Warhammer 40k universe, but we're playing a alternate history World War II campaign. And I do want to give you a few disclaimers before I go deeper into my 5 reasons why I am right now really liking this system. And the first disclaimer is I am not an expert on this system yet. I think I'm 6 or 7 games. We play pretty long games. We play games of like 3 hours, maybe 4 hours. So I know how the system works. I know some of the in and outs of the system, but I am also not GMing the system. That's Kevin. Kevin is creating an insanely cool, thank you Kevin, for insanely cool World War II kind of alternate thingy for us. So he's more of like the expert on everything. I'm just like sitting there on the receiving end, which for me is a really new and fresh way of looking at an RPG and kind of like reviewing an RPG, because as a player, I never feel that I really need to know all of the ins and outs of a system. I can just like ask my DM and then just trust his judgment, right? If they're like, no, I rule it like this, I'm like, okay, good for you. I'm not gonna look it up in the book and try to discuss it with them. That's just not the kind of person that I am. But also, that means I'm not an expert. So these are just 5 reasons that just feel right for me, if you know what I mean. Also, if you're watching this video and you hear me make a lot of comparisons to 5th edition, that's because the bulk of what I've been playing in the last couple like years is Dungeons and Dragons, is 5th edition, and the last year or 2 or so Cypher system. So it's just natural for me. I know it's completely different from 5th edition. I know it's not necessarily meant to be compared to 5th edition, to Dungeons and Dragons, but naturally for me, I will compare everything to 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. If I buy a new bass guitar, I'm a bassist, by the way. If I buy a new bass guitar, I will always compare the sound to a Fender P-Bass. That's how it works with tabletop RPGs for me, in my brain at least, as well. So without further ado, let's get into reason number 1 that I'm really enjoying Wrath and Glory, and this is actually one of the reasons why in the beginning I didn't like Wrath and Glory, and that is rolling a shit ton of dice. Now, rolling a shit ton of dice, Wrath and Glory is, by the way, a D6 system, meaning that if you have a number in a skill, for example, you have a ballistic skill, which means shooting, of 9, which is pretty damn high, you get to roll 9 D6s, and every 4 you roll and every 5 you roll counts as 1 point, and every 6 you roll counts as 2 points. You then add those points, and that's the total you get. You compare that to the DC of the game master, and that's if you succeed, how much you succeed, or if you fail. Meaning that the more dice you get to roll, the better you are at a particular skill. But this also means one thing, and that's the beauty of math, and math rocks, is averages. Averages. This is something I only have been noticing by playing a ton of Wrath and Glory, which is the more dice you roll, the more you're gonna roll well on average. I'm not gonna go super deep into the math here of this, but that's just basically how it works. With this system, like with a system like Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition, you're going to always have 1 chance out of 20 to crit, always 1 chance out of 20 to crit fail. You have a lot of those spikes in the high end, but also a lot of the spikes in the low end, right? And rolling average, doing good on average is harder to do in a game, in a D20 game, right? And my game master actually told me this in like the first session, and I was like super skeptical. I was like, that doesn't make sense to me. But then I was like looking into the math and just like really noticing it. I, for example, have a character who is a technician, who is a mechanic, right? I'm a mechanic, and I got to fiddle with machines. When we're like stealing a car, I can jumpstart the car, that kind of stuff, right? So I have a tech skill of 9, if I'm not mistaken. So I get to roll 96s. So more often than not, I'm gonna succeed. I'm not gonna have those high, ridiculous spikes as much as you have in Dungeons and Dragons or 5th edition or that kind of stuff. So I'm not gonna like try to jumpstart a car and then accidentally turn it into, I don't know, a freaking airplane because I roll that high. I'm exaggerating, I know, but you know what I mean, right? I'm not gonna have those spikes in the high end, but also not in the low end. So my character is a mechanic, a trained mechanic. He's been a mechanic his whole life. So it just makes sense that the guy knows how to change a tire, that the guy knows how to jumpstart a car, and that the guy knows how to start a big ass diesel generator. Even if he's never seen that particular type of diesel generator, he's probably going to go figure out how that works, right? And that is why averages are super important. I really like that because it also makes the storytelling for the game master a little bit more predictable. So the game master, when he writes particular stuff, for example, he writes like, oh, they find this thing right here, and they're going to need to figure out how to start it. I'm going off of the tech skill right now. They're going to need to figure out how it's started, but they have a tech guy. So when preparing, the game master almost knows for certain that the tag guy is going to make it, especially if there is another person in the team who can help out, who can buff them, make them roll even more dice, that kind of stuff. So if I make, as a game master, make this a difficulty 3 and the guy gets to roll 96s, there's a good chance he's gonna make it. If he doesn't, I'll tie something like a story around it, but other than that, as a game master, it's just really easy preparation kind of help, if that makes any sense. Now, in order to build in some of that high spike and low spike thing that makes a system like 5th edition exciting in a way, you have one die. One of your d6s is a different color d6, and it's your special little d6 that you need to take care of and feed and everything. No, always when you make a check, you also roll that d6 as part of that check. If that rolls on a 1, there's a complication. If that rolls on a 6, it's a critical success, or I don't know exactly what the name is, but it is not the same spike type of thing, like you deal this much extra damage or you succeed this much or whatever. It is just like, if you roll a 1, there's a complication. Something happens, but it's always based on a narrative thing. The game really focuses on narrative stuff. For example, our game master has a list of stuff that can happen when you roll a 1 in certain situations. He has a list of stuff that can happen when you roll a 6 in certain situations. The complications when you roll a 1 are never like game breaking. They're just like minor inconveniences, sometimes bigger inconveniences, but always fun to handle with. And when you roll a 6, it's never game breaking. You never are like super powerful for like 3 seconds. You basically just get like this little extra fun thing that happens to you or the people around you, which makes the game focus on narrative a lot more. And that ties into reason number 2, which is narrative declarations. I absolutely love this system. Narrative declarations are, so the way we handle it, you start off with 2 little, we have like this little fake crystals, which are blue or green, I don't know. You place them next to you at the beginning of every session, not at the beginning of every adventuring day or whatever. It's really a session-based kind of thing. I should have added that to the list. It's a session-based RPG, which I actually like a lot. So you get 2 of these narrative declaration kind of things. You can do other things with these crystals, but a narrative declaration is basically you just going like, I want this to be happening or to be to happen in the world or around me, so to progress the story in the way that I want it to. And then it's up to the GM to kind of just be like, okay, I'm okay with that, that kind of makes sense, right? Or he's like, nah, that's a little far-fetched, but what if we, and then you get this discussion, which is really like ties into the narrative focus of this game, where the players and the GM are always having this open conversation of what happens around them in the world, which is the actual like core of combined storytelling, right? So narrative declaration just as an example, for example, what we did, we didn't do it like that, but just like basic, I'm just using it as an example. You find an armored vehicle, World War II setting, you find an armored vehicle, you go ride that armored vehicle, but it's a German armored vehicle and you are Americans. So what do you want to do? I had the idea. I know I'm a genius. If you listen very carefully, you can hear my geniusness. Just so you know. We painted a red cross on the sides of the vehicle, just so when airplanes come over or other soldiers, Germans, I don't know, or Americans or whatever alike, they don't start immediately shooting at us, right? Just like lowering the chances of just getting shot, basically. So, but paint, it's really hard to get by, especially like red paint. You're not just gonna find that somewhere, but you could, for example, use a narrative declaration and be like, say, GM, what if I go into a basement of a building nearby and I find a can of red and a can of white paint to build this red cross kind of thing. GM could be like, that's actually a pretty damn good idea. Thank you very much. I'll take that crystal for you. And you indeed find that can of red paint. That is what a narrative declaration is about. It just keeps the game going. It makes it more narratively focused. It makes it more fun. You're now driving around with an armored vehicle that's basically an ambulance in the eye of other people. So they're not going to instinctively shoot at it. At least that's what I hope. I already touched on number 3 in one of my first points, but that's complications. Complications is when you roll a 1 on your wrath die. Is that what's called? It's the one little special die that you have that you roll together with all of your other d6s. And if that rolls on a 1, you have a complication. And I just wanted to make a separate point of that because I like that. Because it's failing without really failing, without telling the players like, you suck for rolling a 1, right? For example, just a stupid example, you might be picking a luck, right? You're picking a luck and you absolutely succeed on picking that luck because you roll high enough. But your 1 special die happens to roll on a 1. The game master could be like, you pick the luck and the luck opens, but your luck picking tools break. That's a complication. You still succeeded because you have been picking locks for your entire life or whatever, or you just know how to pick locks, so you succeed on actually doing it, but just as while pulling out the lock picking tool, like a small screwdriver kind of thing when you're working on cars or whatever, it just breaks, right? Which happens. Or somebody is watching you do it and they are now alarmed or that kind of stuff, right? You still are able to go into the room, which has the treasure or whatever it has on the other side, or the information you need from the other side, but somebody is triggered and the guy starts running because they want to hit the alarm, so your friends need to shoot that guy before he rings the alarm. Something like that can happen from a complication. But you notice one important thing, again, it's all focused on narrative gameplay. Reason number 4, it might be super obvious, but its adaptability to other settings is just uncanny. Especially the way we're doing it. Where 5th edition, for example, is when you play it, when you read it, when you do that kind of stuff, you really feel that it's built for fantasy, maybe some sci-fi if you really start tweaking it, or some sci-fi fantasy kind of stuff. You can play Star Wars in 5th edition, but if you would go to like an alternate history, World War II, you really need to do a lot of stuff to 5th edition in order to make it work. We played a one-shot of Warhammer 40k before we started this campaign, and we were like, oh, this is fun, this is a lot of fun. And then Kevin, our game master, thank you Kevin, again, for making that world and everything, he was like, look at the character sheet. how well would this work for World War II? And I looked down at my character sheet and was like, ballistic skill, tech skill, pilot skill, everything just made sense. And there's rules for vehicle combat. There's rules for adjusting your vehicle. Like I mean like fiddling with your vehicle 18 style, right? There's rules for that. There's rules for communication stuff. There's rules for sneak stuff. All of these rules, whenever you read through Wrath and Glory, although it's all written for Warhammer 40k, you can just smell World War II if you want to smell it, if you know what I mean. I really love its adaptability, where you can completely change the setting in 5th edition from one fantasy setting to the other. It's the same with Wrath and Glory, where you can change it completely to another setting within another set of settings, if you know what I mean. I like World War II. It's all like running and gunning and sneaking and hitting people and that kind of boots on the ground, like combat gameplay, right? There's actually more that is the same in Warhammer 40k. It's really hard to actually pin down why that is. But the character sheet, you just need to take a look at the character sheet. I go over the character sheet in my previous video, by the way. It is just perfect. It is just perfect for World War II. We didn't need to do anything. We just changed the names of some weapons, changed the names of some vehicles, and we're ready to go kill some Germans. Can I say that? I don't know if I can say that. Reason number 5 might be my personal favorite reason, the most important thing. It's not D&D. I'm not talking about 5th edition as a system. 5th edition is great. I still play 5th edition. But I'm talking about D&D, Dungeons and Dragons. The brand and the company, Hasbro, behind it. I'm really happy for not playing that and playing something else that works completely different, but it's just equal amounts of fun, if not more fun. And I admit I've been hanging around this D&D vibe for way too long. I've been like a super mainstream tabletop RPG person, which is not a thing, I know, because tabletop RPGs aren't mainstream, but like within the tabletop RPG scene, I am mainstream for playing a lot of D&D and now Cypher System and less other RPGs. But yeah, I'm really happy for like landing on some RPGs that aren't D&D. For example, Nimble is one of that, DC-20 is one of those, Cypher System, and now Wrath and Glory. It is not D&D. I'm not supporting Wizards of the Coast or Hasbro, which I'm really happy about. Yeah, if you like my Wrath and Glory stuff, make sure to hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe button below, put in the comments what you want to know about Wrath and Glory, or if you want more, like just, if you want me to talk about the actual story that we're playing and the shenanigans that we're going through, also put that in the comments below, because I want to know if you want to know, because if you want to know, I want to make that video for you. And until next video, bye-bye.